Welcome down to Sutton Lake today to fish for the Crucian, and we're going to show you the methods that we use. It took us a while to kind of fine-tune what we do, and now we're pretty confident in our rigs, aren't we?
Yeah, we've
really
been
effective.
Doing it for a few years now, haven't we? And you know, we've caught some decent Crucians over the years, and as a result of that, our methods have changed. How we go about it, the rigs we use, everything's evolved, hasn't it?
Yeah, and we're in a fortunate position, aren't we, that, you know, working with Korum and our colleagues at Korum in product development, we'll change and tweak the rigs so we can get them exactly as we like them for this kind of fishing, can't we? It's a great position to be in. Exactly,
and there's a few components today that, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that we're sat here tweaking things non-stop, and you know, they really fit the bill for this type of fishing.
Yeah. Anyway, before we show you the rigs, there's been a bit of a renaissance with Crucian fishing, hasn't there?
Yeah, certainly,
late. Yeah. Why do you think that is? What do you think the appeal is, Ed?
I think, well, they were in a bit of a tricky situations, Crucians were, regarding habitat, and there's been a surge of enthusiasts wanting to restock waters. The Environment Agency have done a lot as well, and people off their own back, stocking waters, getting Crucians back on the map, looking after them. And you know, everybody now realistically has somewhere not too far away where they can go and fish for them.
And I think they're quite an enigmatic fish, aren't they? You know,
stunning.
I mean, for me, it takes me back to my childhood, one of my first fish, fishing on the local farm pond, you know, catching, you know, half a dozen little ones of this size.
Yeah.
You know, never then did I dream that one day we might be fishing for fish of £3, even £4 in this lake. You know, it's remarkable to see how far it's come.
Float fishing back then, yeah.
Float fishing back then, and it's a lovely way of fishing for them, and I still float fish for them quite a bit. As you know, we've caught some good fish out of here on the float.
Yeah.
But I think when you start talking about an effective rig for an angler who's specialist fishing and wants to maximise his time, you really can't look much past the method feeder, I don't think. So, yeah, you said sometimes it feels like it's almost cheating if you get it right, doesn't it? The method is that effective.
Yeah.
But, as you and I know, there's fishing the method and then there's fishing the method, isn't there? And just fine-tuning it and getting those small details right.
Yeah, it's all the same as any fishing. It's about the percentages, isn't it?
Notch up a percent, notch up a percent, notch up a percent, and eventually it comes into your favour, doesn't it?
Exactly. And there's, in this method of fishing, there's a lot of percentages you can keep adding up to get it in your favour. Absolutely,
and we've seen them this morning. They can be all over your bait, and catching them is never that easy, is it?
No, it's been tricky today, but it's gone bright skies. It's a good month to be fishing for them. You know, they're going to get their heads down. People normally jack in fishing for Crucians too early, in my opinion. They'll feed right through very comfortably into mid-November, depending on the weather. Yeah. So you know, they're quite an obliging species.
Should we talk through your rig? Start at the top end.
Okay, so straight out the rod tip and down, we like to fish naked to the feeder, apart from an olivet. Now these are quick change Korum olivettes, come in a range of different sizes, and I'd use just a weight that feels right for the situation you're in, the slope. Now the reason this is on here, it's sandwiched in between two float stops. I could change the weight very quickly if I want to, just slides off, there's a slot in it. And I normally set that 18 inches to 2 foot away from the feeder. And that's just to pin the line down. So I'll cast in, tighten up to the feeder so everything straightens off, and then just back everything off, let the olivet sit on the deck, and then let the bobbin then take the slack out. And it
really eliminates a lot of line bites, doesn't it? You know,
you got
because we're baiting really tight. That's the key thing. So if you can imagine this here, our baiting area is literally like that, isn't it?
Ever so tight.
So the fish are moving around that really tight area, and you've got it all pinned down here, and they're
Yeah.
not spooking, they're not catching the pectorals on it or anything and spooking. I think this is a really big advantage. It's an edge that not a lot of people use, that Olivet, I think.
No, and Crucians by nature are really industrious. So you put in a bed of bait out, it's dead, like Gary says, the tighter you can keep that bait, the better.
Yeah.
But because they really like to get into the lake bed, grub around, move stuff around, they'll shift branches and twigs and stuff.
We've seen underwater footage, haven't they? They're throwing leaves up and everything, and sticks and everything getting down to it, aren't they?
If there's bait there, they'll push obstacles out the way. While they're doing that, if your line's all up in the air and all up here, you're going to get false bites and spook the fish as
well. They are quite a tricky fish to catch. They do spook, don't they?
They do, yeah.
They do spook.
Although they're pushing those obstacles about, there's a difference between twigs, weed and leaf litter.
Something unnatural. They feel it straight away.
So that for us is a bit of a go-to.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Pin that bit of line down.
Absolutely. And then the feeder itself, I mean, we've got the new Korum method feeder here, which is the 30 gram one. I think 30 gram is
that your
just
go-to
right.
weight?
Yeah, I think 30 gram is just perfect. I think you start going, especially because I'll show the hook in a bit, but I'm only fishing like a 16s or a 14s hook. And if you've got 45 grams or 60 grams bouncing around on a 1 inch and a half, 2 inch hook
I agree.
length.
So now sometimes, as you know, I sometimes fish a bigger hook.
Yeah.
And I will fish like a 45 gram feeder then. But I think what I want to do is make that heavier gauge hook get driven home by fishing a heavier feeder.
I think it's an area where we're slightly different. I think you fish a slightly larger hook than me in the main. So a 45 gram with a 12s hook or even a 10 is about right.
Yeah.
But I'm fishing generally a 16 or a 14, so I like the 30. So that seems to that seems to bounce really well. And again, I said 30 grams a good all round weight for me. But listen, if it isn't, with the new Korum feeders, the centre just pulls out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Just mind that hook in my hand. So you just pull that out. It goes through the slot, and you can change for
fantastic.
A bigger, not just heavier, but bigger.
Not only that, packing your rods away.
Yeah.
Take the weight off. Leave the stem on. It's not rattling around, damaging your line or anything.
And it's
brilliant.
It's worth saying this one that we use. I think it's the one that they call the small feeder.
Yeah.
Which is 30 grams instead of 30 or 45. But they also do a much larger one, which I use for bream, which is great for bream. Gets a lot more bait out there as well. And for casting, you've got the shield here.
Yeah.
Can you make that out on the edge there? And then that just protects it when you're doing any kind of casting, dropping it into the water.
That's right. They're also designed with the weight forward. So obviously you got most of the weight in this area here, which is brilliant from a hooking capability.
Yeah.
So when a fish is picking it up, and especially with crucians, because they are so finicky, the weight where you want your hook length to be attached to the weight.
Yeah, the main mass of it is as close as possible to the hook.
Yeah, so it's driving that hook home. And also with the smaller weight of feeder, I think, that short hook length lends itself well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With a longer one, you might want a bit of a heavier feeder or whatnot.
And I think we both agree on the hook length, don't we? Let's just move off the feeder for a second. Now we'll come back to the various feeders we can use, but we'll just talk through this rig at the moment. Now, we both use a hook length of about 2 inches.
Yeah.
I think. And I use the Preston Power, the Reflow. I've been using that for years. I think it'll be in my tackle box somewhere, yeah. I think it's 0.15, the 514. Excellent, really strong for a really low diameter, and I've never had problems with it. And I've landed fish 25, 28 pound on it. Do you know what I mean? And as I said, Ed, it's not just a small fish method, is it? It catches a lot of big fish.
On all lakes you'll pick up different species. Across the country, there's specimen fish caught, even when you're not specifically targeting that species. We catch roach, carp, big carp, and if you get your rigs right, even though we're not fishing heavy gear, 6 pound lines, if you got 5 or 6 pound hook links, you got the capabilities of landing those big fish. We regularly catch 20 pound carp on it, don't we?
Balanced gear, it's amazing how big a fish and how much pressure you can put on it if you play it right, aren't you?
So with the evolution of the rigs and everything and how we fish, one of the it doesn't seem that important, but it is important. It's important to me in my fishing.
We actually got excited about a bead. That's kind of what we've become to in our fishing, isn't it? We've got excited about a bead.
We have, mate, yeah. For years and years, I was cutting down tulip beads and all manner of different products.
Pushing bits of rubber in and finding a swivel that fits it and pushing it in and everything, yeah.
Exactly. And just to get like a semi-fixed bolt rig effect at the end. So it was safe and the feeder could come off, but you wanted it to plug the feeder to the point that you're definitely setting the hook.
Yeah.
And Korum have got that right now, haven't they?
And that it's totally safe. That if you snap off, it just pulls through as well, doesn't it? So
on the end here, we've got a camo bolt bead. It's got a tapered cylindrical end that inserts into the feeder. That's what houses it. That's the trick. And it means that it doesn't fall out on the
interference fit, it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an interference fit, they used to call it in engineering.
And then inside that, we've got a little plastic insert. Now, don't let that put you off. It used to put me off because I thought, oh, a bit of plastic, it's not going to be strong enough. That's as strong as...
Do you know what? Honestly, you just said that. I used to be taking those plastic inserts out and putting little swivels in because I thought they were stronger. Yeah. And then, this is the truth, I was watching a Des Ship video where he was using these plastic inserts with Preston things, and he was absolutely sculling 18-pound carping one after the other. And then I've started using these now, and you know, I've had 25-pound carp from here without any problem at all.
Our original inserts that went into the safe lead clips, I've had 40-pound carp off the top using them.
Yeah. So as Ed says, do not let the plastic put you off. You don't need a metal insert at all.
No, they're ideal and they're so quick. They've got a little slot in them, so you can change. Look how quick's that. So, like I say, you can change your hook links dead fast using that slot on and off, and it is worth having loads set up.
Yeah, especially, you know, you might want to change your hook in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, you've got eyes like me, you don't want to be trying to tie a 16 zoot, do you?
The hook points go over, anything like that. You might pull the hair out, whatever.
Yeah.
Just have one of these rig bins with them all laid out.
Yeah. And hook length, this is something else that I've started to realise in fishing for crucians. It's the length of the hair is almost non-existent. I actually have the bend touching the bait, whatever size bait it is, and I'll change the length of the hair to suit the bait. I just don't think they suck it in and blow it out like the king carp do. And I just found that by having the hook bait actually touching the bend, you get very rare little prick stuff like that. They eat it and they're on.
Their anatomy is completely different, isn't it,
yeah.
to most other fish that we'd fish for. You know, the mouth shape and the way they tip up, the way they sit in the water, and that is the trick to having that short rig, like you say, short hair. I've plenty of rigs tied up with different length hairs for when because it is important to change your baits, because you know sometimes you've got to ring the changes and that. So I have that in your armoury. But yeah, I agree with you. The length of the hair off the back of your hook, if you can fish your bait tight to the shank of your hook,
it's a really good tip for the crucians, isn't it? Yeah. So that's kind of, I would pretty much say we've just taught you through our go-to crucian rig there for 90% of everything. I mean, there's a few like tweaks that we sometimes do. I mean, this is the Preston feeder, the 30-gram one, which is a bit more of a flat bed. It doesn't have that protective there, you know. And if I'm actually lowering it in, or even using you know, one of the poles kind of thing to do it, sometimes I use that because it's got a little bit more finesse, and your bait just drops nicely in the middle of it there. So and then, well, I think what's quite nice now is we do this pack, and we spoke about all the feeders being interchangeable. You've got the variety of the 3 main feeders that most people use for a lot of the fishing. So you don't need to worry about, you know, should I buy 2 of these, 3 of those, 1 of them. The mould fits all of them. As we showed you before, there's a slot in the back of the feeder so you can interchange them. So you can go from the method feeder, which me and Ed do a lot of the time. Then there's the obviously the maggot feeder, which is really good, isn't it? If you're fishing for the roach or the tench or whatever, and you want to focus more on particles. And then you've got the hybrid one, which is getting more and more popular these days, which I think most people call a window feeder. And I think generally most people fish with that. Well, what I do with it is put my maggots in and then just block it with a bit of dry powder. Is that how you fish them out?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Spot on. But like you say, even, you know, different swims, sometimes you've got to make something happen, and it's dead important to bait up tight. So what better than you could change and give it half an hour with changing it to a maggot feeder and get some maggot feeder going in, and then change back to you.
And you don't, as you said, you don't need to start tackling down.
No,
it just slides off the slot.
Yeah.
Change straight from a method to a maggot feeder. Put a handful of maggots in it.
Definitely. What bait we use, that definitely has an impact. There's certain going baits and stuff.
Yeah.
But we both like to use Sonu ground bait, don't we? And a mixer there.
Yeah, I use the match mix, the method match mix. It's probably the most consistent one that I use. I used to put a lot of pellets on the hook. Sometimes I put a few 2 milli pellets on it now.
Yeah.
But not a lot of them. S pellets. And the bloodworm ones I've done quite well on.
I go through a phase of using the sticky pellets and just using them, or using like the crush that they've got.
What I have bing using a lot on both in my method mix and on my bait is the Absolute fish oil.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just been amazing. I think it's got a lot of I think it's halibut that's got it. It's certainly got marine fish oil in it.
Yeah.
And it just creates that slick, and
it's a mix of all salmon and all sorts in there.
Yeah. It definitely draws fish in that, and I mix that into me my method mix, which I would say again, not everybody will do it. You know, this EVA ball does come with a riddle. It's so important to riddle it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you just get that nice fine mix with no lumps in it, and
Definitely.
it makes such a difference. So I think if you wanted to have a go at fishing the method for the Crucian, I don't think there's much else we can tell you, is there?
No,
just all the components are there.
Pick your spots sensibly. Another tip, I suppose, when you get into a swim, take your hook link off, put your feeder out, just check what the bottom's like beforehand. Using those short hook links, if it's really twiggy and stuff, you can get tangled up and get twigs on it and stuff. So yeah, just do a bit of preparation beforehand. It's
a really good point. You and I will never drop a method feeder under a tree without drawing it back first, will we? Because
even if it's a swim that I fished 2 weeks previously, I'd still come back, give it a dry run first, just drop it.
Just pull it through.
Because I'm of the belief that the Crucians are a species that are quite tolerant of a bit of disturbance and that. I'd rather check my rigs fishing and maybe disturb them a little bit than completely, maybe sit there for hours behind a fouled up rod.
Yeah, you want to know your root baits. And I think one of the things about the method feeder and the way it sits, I mean, we can show you a minute. I'll knock one up. Yeah, it really is to set up. I'll show you how to quickly set this up and what the presentation looks like. You just tried to give me a bite then, Ed, didn't you?
Yeah.
Thanks for that, mate. Can't beat doing a bit of filming, can you? And your mate trying to put a barbecue into you. So it's very immature and very childish, in my view. But yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
No, we certainly wouldn't. So don't pack it in too tight, because you want the Crucian to be able to nuzzle away into it and poke it out. So really easy. Turn the feed over, and you can see how it sits now. You can actually make out the hook there, tight against the bait. In this case, it's a soft pellet, and of course it starts to break down. It all kind of moves away, and you're left with a little ball of feed, and right on top of it there, the hook standing proud on your bait. Really simple rig, and it always, most people will probably know this, but for those of you who don't, there's only weight on one side and at the bottom there, so it always lands that side up with your bait sat on top of it. And it's when you look at it like that, the mechanics of it, it's no surprise that it's
Yeah.
a really effective rig, is it?
It's all camo, non-gloss, disappears on the bottom.
Yeah.
There's like to bite a chuck.
Yeah, even if they don't come in for the pellet or the boiler, or whatever it is, and you know, they're going to just come across it, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. It's a very simple method, but as we've just said, fine tune it, get those little percentages right, and you will certainly have an edge over other people fishing the method.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more, mate.
And proof of the pudding, it's caught us a couple of nice fish this morning, hasn't it?
It has, mate, yeah.
We've got a nice crucian, which we'll show you in a little bit, and we had a nice bonus fish as well, didn't we?
We did, mate. I caught a nice roach, completely out of the blue on the boilie. It's rare to get one on a boilie out of here, but it just goes to show what can come along when you get your presentation right.
Yeah. As we said, it's an effective method. It's an effective method for all species of fish, isn't it?
Definitely.
So we've talked you through the methodologies today, so we can definitely talk the talk, but can we walk the walk? Well, here's a 3 pound 5 ounce crucian that I had at first light this morning. Took the methods that we showed you, the rigs that I showed you. Stunning example of a crucian carp.
Brilliant, mate.
And Ed, you had a bonus, didn't you, this
I
morning,
did, mate.
soon after this?
It wasn't the target species, but at 2.5 pound, that's not too shabby a roach, is it?
I think as nuisance fish go, that's never going to be a nuisance, is it? 2 pound 8 ounce.
I'm well happy with that. Like I say, not what I was after, but actually had 2 on boilies, which is a rare thing in here.
Yeah. So, 2 stunning fish, 3 pound 5 ounce crucian,
2 pound 8 ounce roach.
and I think that's a good morning's fishing, mate.
Definitely.
Let's get them back. So, just as we're packing in, and I make the comments about catching the target species and giving him a bit of grief, look what he does as we're packing in.
How about that?
Here you go, mate.
It's a bunny round one, isn't it?
Get the depth on that.
Beautiful fish. Well, that's what we came for. It was a bit of a graft and it wasn't caught from where I'd expect, but there was a few fish blowing, so...
To be fair,
That's
we spotted it bubbling
Yeah.
and you said I'm going to put a bait on it.
And that's
you
the
did.
beauty of the method feeder, isn't it? You just put some bait on and throw it where you think there's going to be a bite.
Well done, mate! Superb. Well done, pal.
Cheers, bud.